Welcome to the Weekly Fix podcast, where we're just two friends talking about our passions within movies, TV shows, gaming, and comics. Thanks for checking out the podcast. We hope you like it. Hello, and welcome to Weekly Fix. I'm your host, Zane. Joining with me, as always, is Jacob. Now, we actually just got back from an exciting day. We got to go to CollectiveCon, but that's not what we're here to talk about. What we are here to talk about is the Invincible Season 3. We finished the entire season. Finale dropped on Thursday. Me and Jacob have both had time to watch it, let us sit with it, and now we are here to talk about it. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I didn't realize how tired I was after the con today until I got home. I got showered and I was like, "Oh man, my feet are hurting a little bit. Oh man, my legs hurt a little bit. Oh man, I'm getting a little tired." So I'm excited that I have enough energy to do the podcast. But I got to be honest. After this, I might just be about tapped.
Hey, that's okay. Luckily, our content today is so good that I think no matter how tired you were, you'd be probably amped to talk about it. What do you agree?
Oh yeah, especially with how much I was trying to find Invincible stuff at the con. And I gotta say, I think there's a big missed opportunity right now. I mean, Invincible just ended. I mean, how many people did we talk to today? Just like random people at the event that saw my t-shirt. I was wearing an Invincible t-shirt that stopped and talked to us about the season finale and everything. And there really wasn't a ton of Invincible merch there. So I'm kind of surprised. Maybe that was our golden opportunity, Zane, to make $1 million, as we could have brought some Invincible merch that we made ourselves. It might not have been the best quality, but I think there was definitely a little bit of something missing from the con today.
Oh, definitely. I was also very surprised at the lack of Invincible uh memorabilia there that should have been, I think. So I agree with you. Definitely a missed opportunity by some of the vendors, but hey, it was still a really good time. But season 3, man, overall, do you want to? I feel like, so this is an overall complete season review. I don't think we need to hold back any spoilers. If you've been tagging along or if you're not, guys, season 3 is incredible. And that's pretty much all we can say. Hey, it is a mature show. You know, guard your make wise choices if this is for you or not. But other than that, I think we jump right into spoilers. What do you think?
Oh, I'm down. I think
All
we're
right.
we're ready to talk about this great season and this great season finale.
All right, so last time we got to talk at the end of Daredevil, if you listened to our Daredevil review, we did talk a little bit about the previous episode, The Invincible War. Now, Jacob, we ended that one and we got to see Conquest, and I know you were a little disappointed with Jeffrey Dean Morgan's voice acting, so I wanted to check back in on you and let everyone know, what did you think about the finale, and especially at that point, since you did have a little bit of a, I would say, complaint almost about that at the end of the last episode.
Yeah, definitely the finale did a lot better with it. And I think my big thing was I wanted to know that it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I think this show does such a good job with the incredible cast of voice actors that they do collect for the show, that I want to know who they are. It's not one of those situations where I'm like, "Oh, I know all these actors from so many other things. I don't really want to know them from something else," if that makes sense. Like, usually a lot of the time we don't want to correlate, like Robert Downey Jr. when you're watching him in another movie, you don't want to be reminded that he's Iron Man. And I kind of have the opposite opinion with Invincible. For some reason, when I hear that we got a big name voice actor, I want to know that it's them. And the season finale definitely did a much better job than that 30-second clip that we got at the Invincible War episode with Conquest, of really proving that it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He did a phenomenal job as Conquest and really did some awesome stuff that I really wasn't expecting, with some intimate conversation with Invincible, kind of getting a little bit more down to like a normal human level of things. It wasn't just yelling and screaming and slurs and like just being mean to each other. He did a really great job of balancing it all together. So I think that was a phenomenal aspect of the season finale.
Yeah, I could not be happier with the season 3 finale, and especially the voice acting throughout the entire season. I mean, Invincible is just incredible. They do a great job. They're phenomenal with their scripts and with their voice acting. But season 3, I think, actually even stepped it up a little bit. The only thing I think that maybe did take a little bit of a dip is that we didn't get as much J.K. Simmons. Omni Man wasn't as present. But other than that, man, so phenomenal. Jeffrey Dean Morgan crushed it. His lines as a villain were menacing. They were thought provoking, and you loved it. Like it went, and it was, you said you wanted to know it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and I didn't want to see Negan, and I didn't. So these villains are very similar. However, there's just so much more charisma with Negan that came through than there was with Conquest. Now he was very charming in his own villainous way, but nothing like Negan in that. And obviously, that's probably more script than his voice acting. But man, what a fun time with him! Like you said, those intimate scenes, the take it to your grave scene. Oh my goodness! Like what a moment for Invincible. And as people who have not read the comics, this was just like had me on the edge of my seat the entire time because I know this is going to go for a while and I know this isn't the end of Invincible, but when you have a multiverse of Invincibles, I think you could kind of see where maybe they do pull something from another one. Maybe this is the end of this Invincible. So that was kind of exciting for me. And then just touching back on the voice acting real quick for episode 7, I we were talking to somebody today at the con, and he was like, Steven Yeun has done such a phenomenal job. And you mentioned how well he had done voicing the other marks. And I did want to touch on that. Like he was not the same character playing, even though he was still playing Invincible, he was playing 12 different Invincibles, and they all had a very unique, very distinguishing sound. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth pointing out. I think he's a phenomenal just actor in general. Like I haven't seen him in a ton of stuff, but I thought he was fantastic in The Walking Dead and a few other things that I've seen him be a part of. I really enjoyed him in. But I think he's definitely started to etch his way into like a top tier voice actor. I mean, just talking about, being able to do all the different marks, and while they did have their similar takes to make you still realize that it was Invincible, he did give them their own little subtle, ways of saying things and all those things that made it feel different. And I think that's really impressive for an actor to do because obviously they're still trying to be the same person. He's still Invincible, but he's a different version. So it's very impressive that he was able to pull that off in such a way that we could tell that it was a different Invincible, but not take us out of the scene and make us feel like it wasn't Invincible at all. So hats off to him. I think this probably was his best season as far as voice acting goes. We touched on those intimate scenes with Conquest. The scenes where he was, really giving it his all. We'll talk about it here in a minute, but when he says, I can see the future, you don't live to see tomorrow. The emotion in that scene that he was bringing out in his voice was so raw that it was really impressive that he was able to get that, not only recorded in a way that we were like, wow, he like means it, but also to not like have like really bad voice cracking and all stuff like that. So very impressive for him this season for sure.
Oh, and I just echo that so greatly. But aside from the voice acting, you made the mention that you thought that they were saving up the animation budget for the second half of the season. I didn't feel that in the first half. However, I think this episode may be the best animation that they've done in the entirety of the show. What did you think of the season 3 finale animation wise?
Yeah, so this is such a common thing in anime, right? Anime is one of those things that it always looks good, right? You're never really disappointed in it. And that's kind of how I was with Invincible. So when I heard people talking about like, oh, the animation looks so bad, I was like, I just don't think it looks bad. I can understand where you might want some improvements and stuff. But at the end of the day, I did know that there was definitely going to be some big scenes coming up that they were really going to want to emphasize and portray through that animation. And the season 3 finale was like definitely that. I mean, it looked incredible. I think one of the hardest things to really animate, and it's commonly talked about in video games, especially, is hair. And they did such a good job of making Invincible's hair look incredible in the finale. The way it was flowing in the wind, the way it was moving in the fight scenes was really, really impressive. So I do get what people were saying about the first half of the season not looking the best, but definitely the last 2 episodes, you could see where they were really wanting to put their money in to that production aspect of it. I mean, we definitely see it in the Invincible War with the scene with Rex when he does sacrifice himself to save his friends. Like, that's a really great looking scene. And then just the entire Conquest fight looks awesome. So I understand the complaints of people wanting that level the entire time. Sometimes it's just not feasible. They're doing these things every year now. They don't have a ton of time to polish everything. So they're taking their time to polish the things they really want to do. And I think they did a great job with that.
Yeah, you touched on the hair. I thought the hair looked so good because it was so fluid and it really kind of showed, I guess, the level of effort and uh, I guess damage that was getting put forth by Mark because they aren't as easily damaged. So it does kind of like as a fight progresses, and this fight was essentially the entire show,
Hmm.
the entire episode. So it is like a neat little way to see his hair get disheveled in order to show damage or a level of effort, as opposed to just like continuously having blood drip on him. Um, I thought that was really good, and I agree. I think they really put their best foot forward in this episode, specifically, because man, it did look so good, and just every aspect of it. But what were some of your favorite moments from this finale?
I've talked about this so much. It's another thing that we talk to a lot about people at the con. I think the single best moment is when Conquest does get down on Invincible's level and he's in his ear. And the reason I love that scene so much, and we're kind of getting to see this villain, right? There's no other way to put it. This man is evil. But they still did such a great job in that moment in particular of almost getting you to understand why he is the way he is, right? And we see that a lot in today's, writing and stuff with villains. They always kind of wanted to give you like a soft spot, like they were done wrong and all this stuff. And they did it with the way that with Conquest, like I kind of understand what they were trying to do, but I still didn't feel bad for him. But I also understood his aspect of like, he says he's like a product of his own good work, or he's like I forget the exact wording of it, that he's been um hurt for his own success. He's gotten so good at taking over planets. People fear him. He's no one talks to him at the Viltrum Empire. He doesn't even get a name. He just gets called what he does. Like that's a really powerful scene in that, showing that, he's not like necessarily happy with the thing that he's become, but he's embraced it to such a degree that he doesn't care about who he's hurting or what he's doing. So I thought that was a really great scene to kind of give us that little bit of a human aspect to him, but just immediately rip it right back away to where you're like, yep, this guy is still super evil. So that's a scene that's really stuck out with me, and one that I've actually watched a couple times since the finale aired, because I just thought it was not only a great scene for storytelling wise, but that's one of those moments where we really got to see the Jeffrey Dean Morgan voice acting shine.
Yeah, and it really does just show like how much of psychotic he is. Like
Yeah.
the only time he's willing to open up and be vulnerable is to someone he's about to put in the ground. Like
Yeah.
like that's
It's almost
that's
like it almost makes you hate him even more, because this is potentially the last thing this person will ever hear, and he's telling him his sob story. Like that's evil, and I think that's super cool and a great way to kind of display that.
yeah, and he was straight up evil. I love the moment when he was thanking Mark for allowing him to destroy the entire planet essentially. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what you did. Uh, but the Viltrum Empire said no, like nothing is off limits. Kill anyone, damage anything, destroy anything you can, and I'm having the time of my life. Like I just thought that was such a cool thing for him to like implement and say, and really kind of show like the Viltrumites are very upset about what happened on Earth with Nolan. This that hurt them to their core, that their best and brightest got turned by Earth. And then they see that as such a threat that they are willing to, no matter what, conquer it. And I'm honestly kind of surprised that they are still planning to conquer it instead of just destroying it at this point. But I guess we wouldn't have a show if that was the case.
Well, it's also one of those things too. They want to prove a point, right? Like we're not just going to destroy what you have and what you love. We're going to take it from you, and I think that's a really cool thing. But I'm almost interested. Like I want to see how they do treat these other planets that they conquer, because you do hear Conquest say he's like, there's always all these rules and regulations I have to follow. We've not ever seen that from the Viltrum Empire. I mean, they go to the Thraxans planet, the bugs, and they just kill and take whatever they want from them. And in Earth, it's just been a bloodbath. So like, what is the deal with like these these two planets that we've seen that they just hate. Like, I'd like to see these rules and regulations that they speak of because I think that's a little bit of a lie.
Yeah, well, both of those planets had Omni-Man. Both of them
That's true.
had.
That is true.
So I mean, I would say that's probably what, Nolan being affected lifted all of those regulations. And so they were so angry at Nolan that they sent 3 out of 50 Viltrumites to go kill him. So that's pretty intense. Like they don't want to risk not winning that. So everything is off the table, which I mean now I guess we've killed 10% of the Viltrumites at this point, right? Because
Well, it's hard to
Nolan.
tell if those first ones that went to Thraxon, I don't know if they ever confirmed that those ones were the pure-blooded Viltrumites. I know the two that went to execute Nolan were. I believe those two were. I don't know if those ones were, if that was ever confirmed or not. But we
Oh,
do know at
those were
least a few of them
definitely
have.
those were those were definitely pure-blooded Viltrumites.
You think so?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think the Viltrumites would allow their warriors to go. They're so racist against, like, I don't think they would allow not pure-blooded Viltrumites to be in their conquest. I think that's the issue. With the entire, there's only 50 left. Like they killed all the others, so I don't think that there's any left.
That's it. I'm interested to hear like how that progresses because obviously they know Mark's alive and stuff like that, and I'm sure that might not have necessarily been like super news to them because we do hear them say, "Oh, you're the great son of Nolan" and all that stuff. So I feel like there's got to be some intermingled ones still out there that maybe we just haven't heard about and stuff like that. Kind of how Mark was hidden till they ended up showing up. So I think there's probably some out there that have probably eventually joined the cause because they did give Mark that option. It's not like just because he wasn't pure blooded, he wasn't allowed. So I would venture to believe that there's more than just that whatever number there is now. But I definitely think we've gotten through a few of those pure blooded ones.
Yeah. Well, regardless, we've definitely killed 2, and then
For
probably
sure.
one of those 3 was at least.
At
So that's
least.
another
At
one,
least.
and now
Yeah.
we've got conquest. Now talking about killing. Mark's statement at the end, we get to see quite, I mean, that's a big leap in character development when he's talking to Oliver there. I have a feeling I know how you feel about that, but how did you feel about him telling Oliver he's never going to hesitate anymore to end someone's life if he's threatening him, his family, or the ones he loves?
I love it. This is what I've been waiting for the entire show. And I do think it's kind of funny that he thinks he's thought he's killed somebody, kind of another ancient Levy effect, but unfortunately he hasn't. So that's kind of a little problem that he's gonna have to figure out at some point. Maybe he isn't committed to it as much as he thinks he is quite yet. But I do love that change in character because it's about time. I think there's been too many situations that have happened on Earth. And I think we saw it with the Invincible War, especially. I don't think he was even going to kill any of those alternate versions of himself. Now, that's a really tricky situation to put yourself in. Like, would you kill other versions of you? I don't know. But it is one of those things that you're seeing how much damage is done. And it almost gets to that point where you're like, well, if I don't do something about these people, when I'm the only one that can, millions are going to suffer. And so I think for this show and the situation that we've gotten ourselves into, it is definitely needed. And I did personally love that. It means we're going to finally get some fully realized Mark. We're going to get to see him committed to actually punishing people for trying to destroy Earth. And I'm excited to kind of see that version continue to develop.
Yeah, honestly, like there's a lot of that I I enjoy the aspect of like trying to think that life is sacred, and I do love that aspect because all life is sacred, and I do agree with that. However, because life is sacred, some of these acts need to be put down.
Mhm.
Like like the lives that they ended during that fight were too sacred not to end conquest in that moment. Like there should have never been a moment where Mark hesitated because, oh, his life's important. Well, because you hesitated, 50 people on a beach just got evaporated. Um, because you were too weak to do what you needed to do. So I like, because the threat is so massive, I think it's a very good thing that we're turning that on. Like all right, like that switch, like we're removing that governor. Let's just do what we have to do in these fights because these try like man, it would have been nice to have this like Mark have like the ability to move this fight outside of somewhere where hundreds of people were going to die just from punching. Like that would have been pretty cool. But I'm also glad this is turned on. I just hope he still has the goodness in him to want to do good without you know going too far where it's like I'm willing to risk other people's lives because I'm not willing to end one.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a fun kind of more character development that we get to see with Invincible, seeing how does he get that balance? Because that's a hard thing to do. Like when you're as strong as he is, we kind of hear it like with the Spider-Man stuff a lot. Spider-Man's not going to kill anybody, but we also you need to know when you can't hold those punches, and when you do stop holding them, are you doing it in the correct way? So I'm super excited to see that development for him. I think that's one of the things we talk about a lot with Invincible that they do very well is character development and is intertwining multiple stories at one time. So I'm excited to see how that start part of his life develops while he is still having to deal with like these very real threats.
Intertwining multiple stories at once. I like what you said there. How do you feel they did in this episode about multiple storylines?
So I think the finale in particular is one of those moments where we don't want to see multiple storylines. There's one main story, obviously, with Invincible and the Viltrumites. That's been the main theme throughout this entire series. And so when we had these big finales like this, I really don't want to spend a ton of time with these other little stories that we have going on. Now, they did a great job at the end of the episode after the dust had settled, kind of catching us up on where the world is. We get a little hint that the Sequids are still around. They've been in the sewers. They've been amassing their army of people that they've been enslaving. Like, that's going to be a real big threat in the future. We got to see a little bit of Battle Beast. He did win his fight against the Viltrumite, so we know he is still a threat on the board that's, potentially going to help them, or is he just going to be wanting to fight who is literally the strongest person out there, whether that means it's another Viltrumite or maybe it ends up being Invincible again, as we've seen him fight already at once. So they did a good job in the end of intertwining all those things together. But for this episode in particular, I think they did exactly what we wanted, and that's let's see this main story develop, because we've gotten a lot of side stories this season. We got to see a lot of character development with Rex and the Guardians of the Globe kind of falling apart, and they're still in pieces. So they did a great job throughout the entire season, but as far as the finale is concerned, they did a really good job of letting the main story develop and getting us ready for the next season.
Yeah, I think they did a good job there as well. With at the end building it up, I really wish we would have saw Nolan and Alan at least once in this episode though.
Well, you know me. I'm always an advocate for having Allen on the screen anytime we can get him. But I do think there's a reason for that. I'm sure this next season is going to be very heavily dictated towards, their, part of this Viltrumite war that I think we're leading up to. Obviously, Conquest isn't dead. We see that at the end with Cecil. He's probably going to escape at some point. I'm sure he's going to go tell the remaining Viltrumites what happened. We know Alan is already kind of getting her groups together to try to attack the Viltrumites. Obviously, he's trying to find more strong people that are capable of doing those things. So I'd be excited if we got a couple episodes this next season, maybe to start off the season, of seeing their little bit of an adventure they go on, maybe finding some more strong people that are able to compete with the Viltrumites. So I think that's probably why we didn't get a little bit of it. But, a 30-second clip definitely wouldn't have hurt.
Yeah, even right after Battle Beast, we spent that much time on seeing that Battle Beast was still alive and he wants more. I feel like we could have at least seen like is Nolan and Alan the alien going to the United Galactic Empire, or are they going back to Earth? Like where are they headed? Like just show us like maybe even talking about them like hey, like maybe having a discussion like are we going to go back to Earth? Are we no, we need to go like unite the forces and tell them about the Viltrumites' weakness. I think that would have been cool, and maybe not even give us a resolution, but just show like why they didn't show up on Earth. Like they're having an argument in space of how to proceed. I think that would have been cool, but I definitely agree with you. The main storyline was Mark versus Conquest, and I didn't want to distract by that. Like I definitely didn't want to break during the middle of that fight. It was too good. It was too intense. Conquest was too good of a villain to interrupt that and go somewhere else. So I'm glad that they focused in on it. Now, I did have a question. I had one of my friends texted me and he said the show was awesome and he gave a ranking of Conquest. Where in the villains that we've got to see so far do you kind of put Conquest?
Man, that's a great question because we've had some really good villains, and I guess it kind of does depend on, do you classify season one Omni-Man as a villain, but then he's kind of redeemed himself to the point that where he's at now that we really can't consider him a villain anymore? Because I did like that aspect of his villainhood probably a little bit better, but I also think that's just because we got to spend so much time with Omni-Man in season one that it made it a little bit more fun and kind of getting to see that turn. As far as just pure villains go, this might be the best one that we've gotten in Invincible because it was just sheer menacing, raw power in Conquest. There was no, trying to trick Mark. There was no thought that went into the way he fought. He just wanted to destroy him. And so I really like that aspect of it. It was a lot more fun to kind of get to experience that. And he was just a great villain. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, we've talked about already, did a really good job of making us hate him. And so I think that was a really cool aspect of a villain that you definitely need to have is you can't like them, right? They need to actually be a villain. And we've actually had a podcast where, villains that are so bad that they're good, like, that we love them. And I think Conquest definitely kind of fits into that mold very well. We don't want him to win, but he is such a good villain at the end of the day that you love when he's on the screen. So he is a top tier one for me. I might have to do a little bit thinking back and figure out all the villains that we have had, but off the top of my head, he might be the best one that we've gotten in Invincible so far.
Yeah, I would say he's the best Viltrumite villain other than Omni Man. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I think Nolan's by far the best that we've seen, just because of the relationship and everything that has happened there. Um, the other Thula, I think was her name, that fought with Vidor and Lucan on Thraxon.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get enough screen time with them. They were cool. I like
Yeah.
this to see them, but I don't think they have they really stand up. What was the female Viltrumite from last season?
Anissa.
Anissa. Anissa was great, but she was too charismatic to actually like be a super solid villain. She had a really good appearance and I enjoyed it, but I mean I think Conquest outshined her drastically
Mm-hmm.
as a villain. And then I think the worst is probably Doc Seismic. I'd be good if we never see him again. And then Angstrom. Angstrom's really good. I really like Angstrom, but I think I like the Viltrumite storyline better. So I would put Conquest above him, and he feels like more of a threat in and of himself. When in the last episode, when Angstrom Levy was throwing out those little balls towards him, like I couldn't help but think of like Big Hero 6 when he's throwing the magnets out of the
Yeah,
portals, and I
yeah.
was just like, this just doesn't like it doesn't feel like a threat. Like I don't feel like Mark's in danger. I felt like Mark was in danger against Conquest. And so I think he's the best villain we've got outside of um Omni Man. Now I adore the Mauler twins and stuff like that, but as far as like an actual villain, because they're more of like a joke villain,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though they're gone, which is sad. I really did enjoy them, but yeah, I think he is definitely top three at least villains right now.
Well, it helps too when the villain actually like has a cause that they truly believe in. Like the Viltrumites all believe in like their cause is the best. Like they should be, they think they're doing a service to every other, universe or every other world that they encounter by taking them over because they think they're supplying them with like all the best tech and equipment and all that stuff. But I think with Angstrom, the thing that kind of sets him apart is like he really doesn't have a cause other than he just hates Mark. So it kind of makes it a little harder to really root, or not even root necessarily, but to really buy into them being a villain when they're only doing it like strictly for their own personal gain. Some of the best villains, they really truly believe in what they're doing is going to make things better for everybody. Like that's why they're doing what they do. And that's kind of where Conquest comes because the Viltrumite Empire and their will is so strong to just take over. Angstrom's just like, I just hate Mark and I want to kill him. So I think that kind of sets him apart. But I do agree. Angstrom is a great villain. I just think Conquest shines so much in this finale, and hopefully we get more of him. Obviously, he's still alive, so I'm sure that's gonna happen. But I think he did great.
And I do think his voice acting is superior.
Yes, yes.
So that's another bonus. But so where does this season as a whole kind of stack up for you?
This was a really good season, and I thinking back through the episodes, I believe it was episode 2 that I was saying might have been one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. Definitely one of them up there. And then we have the season finale that I also have to put in my top 3 episodes, I believe. So when you have 2 episodes in one season that are in your top 3, it's really hard to not say this might have been the best season of Invincible that we've ever gotten. Now, I definitely think I enjoyed this season more than season 2, and that's not saying that I didn't like season 2. I just think it was a continuation of improvement. Like it continues to get better, the stakes continue to get higher. So obviously the season should be better. Season 1 holds that special place in everybody's hearts. It's the first season. The storyline is really good. If you haven't read the comics like us, seeing Nolan at the end of that first episode turn and then kind of trying to figure out when everybody else is going to figure out that he's not the great guy that everyone thinks he is, that's really fun and it's exciting. But I got to say, this might have been the best season for me personally, based off the things I said. 2 of the top 3 episodes in the series, in my opinion, came this season. A close fourth, maybe fifth, was the Invincible 4 episode. The only thing I think that could have made that even better and made this season even better is I wish the Invincible War arc was maybe like 2 episodes. Give us a little bit of it at first episode, give us the continuation of it in the second one, and let it end the way that it did still end, but just give us a little more of that. I would have loved to see that interaction a little bit more. But no, I think this might be the best season of Invincible that we've gotten so far.
Yeah, I man, I struggle with season 1 stopping that or putting that lower because season 1 was just so good.
Mm-hmm.
And not knowing like what was going on made it even better. And so this one was great. And I think it was far superior to season 2. Season 2 was definitely a dip in Invincible. It just had a little bit too much setup needed. This one we were rocking and rolling right from the get go, and I really enjoyed that. The Cecil undertones throughout the
Yeah.
season was really good. We got to see Alan and Nolan really kind of like we didn't spend much time with them, but what we did get to see was spectacular. Then you talk about we got 2 finales essentially in this
Yeah.
season, and both of them were like just knock it out of the ballpark, amazing home runs. On IMDb, this the season finale currently with 52,000 ratings has a 9.9, which does not happen. Like
Mm-hmm.
like for a show to have a 9.9 episode, that is spectacular, and it's the highest rated episode of the show, and I can see why. Like it was just really really solid. I i think Where Do I Really Come From is better, but it's not rated nearly as high on IMDb. So the consensus, I would say, even at least for now, is that that one's better, that this one's better. The only low point in this season for me is the Fing Fang Foom dragon dude. Like that episode was a letdown for me. I didn't love that one as much. I think it didn't fit within this season as well, and it kind of took away from the main storyline. I liked what we got in that, and it was fine. It just wasn't as good. And then Powerplex was fun, but it just like it was a little much. And him killing his family and then being like, "Look what you did." I was like, "Okay, like this is a bit far for delusion." Which I mean shows like how delusional he was and his hatred for Mark. So, still amazing, still very very good. Um but yeah, this might be the best one. This might be the best season. And if not, it is right there with season one.
Yeah, it gets to the point where they're both such phenomenal seasons. It's like almost personal preference. Like, which arcs did you enjoy a little bit more? Which storylines did you like better? Did you like this character that we had never seen before better in this season, or did you like this new character better? So I think that's just, the quality of show that we're getting. It's so good that it's fun to get to debate about which is a better season, and it's not like one of those situations where we're like, oh, it's definitely not as good. We've definitely seen a dip. We can both agree that season two is probably the worst of the three, but it's still phenomenal, right? We're still picking between three amazing seasons. So, I just think for the things that I said, I think it is the best season, but I can understand some of those low points for you. I like the Powerplex delusion. Like exactly what you said. Like I think it just truly showed how deranged he was, and those type of people can be scary. And we did see in the Invincible War episode when he did get out and he was fighting, he did absolutely toast one of those Invincibles. So I thought that was pretty cool that he got a little bit of revenge there. And then we see him kind of try to turn everybody against Invincible again because he's just a crazy human being. But no, I love this season. There really weren't any lows for me personally. I agree with what you said about the dragon episode. It almost feels like that should have been like episode one or something. Give them that kind of villain that they have to fight. That they do end up dealing with. Whether it's in a good way or a bad way, they get through it. It did kind of feel a little random dropping it where they did, but overall it was still a fun episode. So I don't necessarily take away points from it because while it didn't necessarily push the story forward, it was just a fun thing to sit and watch.
Yeah, and you know, when we're dealing with greatness, a very good, solid episode seems like a dip, which I
Yeah.
think is like worthy of mentioning. Like that's a great episode of
Mhm.
television and better than most animated shows that I watch. Like it's still very, very good. For me personally, I think it is lower. But I mean, even in Invincible season one, there also was dips. Like the same storyline with Machine Head was a
Yeah.
little bit like him going to Mars was not as good, especially the William and his boyfriend at university. Like I could have, done without those episodes. Even though, I mean, looking back on it now, you get to see how big of an like how important it was to introduce that dude
Hmm.
into the show and the robots that he's creating. I
Oh,
think
the Invincibles. Yeah.
Invincibots, dude, those that's gonna be really interesting to see how Mark deals with that coming forward. I really think he needs to get to the point where he's working with Cecil again. I I think he needs to get over himself.
I would agree with you, but Cecil is so dumb. Like also at the same time, I'm like, why would you keep this guy alive that just came to Earth and literally was within, inches of ending the most powerful person that you have? And you know what? We're just going to keep him alive. We're going to rehabilitate. You know what? We're so confident what we're going to do. We're going to get him to tell us what their plan is. Like, come on now. I think that's so naive. So, like, I do want to see them working together again because I love Cecil. I still think he's one of the best characters in the show. I love his dynamic that he brings to each episode. I love his confidence, right? Like, great for you that you think you could do that, but man, what a stupid idea. So, if I'm Mark in this situation, I'm not even upset about him not working with them or like looking at the outside looking in because I probably wouldn't want to work with this dude either with how much he's lied to me. But at the end of the day, you do have to realize how much he's helped him too. So it is one of those fun things to kind of watch develop. But yeah, Cecil, he makes some questionable decisions.
You say that is really dumb to get that, but I think it may not be the worst idea. Like
No,
if
I
you
think it's a
have him,
terrible idea.
and I get that, right? But like, let's say within that block of tungsten carbide, is that what he said he was trapped in?
I think tungsten steel or something like that.
Yeah, which is pretty. I don't know how he had that there and ready for him. It's pretty impressive. But with that, like if you have it to where you can kill him immediately, like yeah, like this is only one. And Cecil doesn't know that their numbers are low. So he can only assume that more are coming that may be worse. So Cecil's a planner and he has to kind of get something to go off of, and that's kind of his only way. I think it would have been really smart for him to tell Mark and discuss that. And if Mark decides to cut the dude's head off and take him to space, that's fine. But you really can't have your best bet against these guys on a different team. Like if we do want to save Earth, then they are going to have to get on the same page because Cecil is an asset. And if he would have been with Cecil at the time, I think he would have been able to rally the other superheroes sooner. And yeah, I think we would have lost a few of them, but at least it would have gave a distraction for Mark to do more damage so that he wasn't taking the brunt of conquest. So I actually get why he would keep him alive because he's got to have some information. You can't solve a problem unless you know what the problem is. And so he's just like reacting, and Cecil is not a reactor. He is a planner. He has to have something ready to go. And so I get it. Like he has zero information. So I think it's stupid as well because of what happened, but I also understand like it's in Cecil's mind they're dead either way. So might as well
I don't know, man.
try.
This conquest took a Kamehameha from Super Saiyan Adam Eve. It still got up and was ready to mess Mark up. So I think at that point, if I'd known this information, I'd be like, yeah, this guy's got to go.
I get it, right? But maybe you could cut all of his limbs off while he was knocked out and he's just like a body.
I don't know, dude. He used that forehead pretty effectively against Mark a few times, too. So I don't think I'd even want that lying around anymore. Oh, man.
Cut okay, you cut him completely apart, just have his own little head, like,
His
you know,
brain,
locked
just his
locked
brain.
in
That's
his
all we
yeah,
need.
just his brain. Put some what I mean,
Brain in a mouth.
Mark seemed to smash that pretty good, so I don't know what's left of that brain.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Uh,
What a good season, dude.
yeah,
But
it
yeah,
was a great season. I really enjoyed it. I'm so sad that it's over. Like I want the next episode this Thursday. Like I want it to continue to go. But at least we do know that they have kind of committed to the every year thing. So I can get down with that. You know, at least it's not I mean, how long was it that we waited for season 2? I think it was like a little over a year and a half maybe, and then we only got half of the season. So at least they're committed to a full season every year. So I can be okay with that. I just hope they don't drop all 3 episodes or a 3 episode premiere because that dramatically dwindled the time that we had with Invincible for this season. So hopefully that's something that he cut back on next season. But no, it is a great season.
yeah, I definitely would have liked to have seen more Invincible time as well. But you know, we have so many good shows dropping right now. We're kind of peak television. We are really decimating the TV game right now. We have this is dropping right now. We also have Reacher, which is top notch television going on. We have Severance, which is one of the best TVs on like in the business. Now the last episode was pure garbage. And then we got Daredevil Born Again, which is really getting off to an amazing first start. So, you know, even though this is over, it's not like we don't have great television. I just wish all 4 shows wouldn't be happening right at once. But they kind of
Well,
have to this year because we have Last of Us and then we
yep.
have Andor season 2, so it's not going to stop, which is awesome.
Well, and then we have those couple of months where we're going to be getting carried by some movies. I mean, we got Superman, we have Fantastic Four, we have Thunderbolts. Like, this could, at the end of the year, when we look back on all the things we got, this might be like one of the best years for entertainment of all time. And that's incredible that we're living in this era. I saw someone make a post the other day that was like, stuff like this only happens, every once in a while. People talk about, oh, this show was so good, or, this era of sports was the best, and la di da di da. We're living in a really cool time for that stuff. I mean, getting Invincible is awesome. You just talked about Daredevil coming back. All this stuff is really cool to be getting able to enjoy it. So I'm all for it. Keep it coming. But I agree. It would be nice to have a little bit of spaced out. So hopefully we don't have any lulls throughout the year that we're like, man, it would be really cool if we had this show going on right now. But can't complain when you have all of this great stuff going on.
Oh, for sure. And then we can get caught up on some of that great stuff that we missed out on, when
For
we
sure.
do get a lull. Or maybe, work on real world stuff.
Or
But
just rewatch Invincible.
yeah, hey, you don't rewatch stuff,
No,
right?
I don't. I do not. So I will not be doing that. But hey, someone else out there will.
That's right. But Guys, you got anything else to say about Invincible? Oh, let's
No, it's
rate it.
peak.
Let's rate the
Oh yeah,
season.
we got it. We got to rate it. You go first. You go first.
I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Almost perfect. The little lulls that I talked about, knock it down a point from perfection, and I hold those tens very close to my heart. I don't just divvy them out with every win. I do think this season was spectacular though, so I'm gonna give this season 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I want to give it a 10 just because I love it so much. But there are some things that I think there was a couple episodes that we had back to back that were both character development episodes that I really think would have been even better if we didn't get those two episodes and we got 2 episodes of the Invincible War, kind of like what I talked about earlier. And I think if that alone is fixed for me, this is a 10 out of 10. But I think a 9, it's as close to a 10 as you can get and not be a 10 for me. This show was awesome. I gave Your Friendly Neighborhood of Spider-Man a 9 this year. Also, these are two very different nines. Like if I'm rating these in the 9 scale, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man's right up there, but Invincible is way past it. So still phenomenal, but yeah, there's just a couple of things I wish they could have done a little bit better. Because I love giving out 10s. I'm not like you. I love when I could just say, yep, 10 out of 10. But no, this one is so good. It is so close for me, but there's just a few things I wish they would have done a little differently.
And I get that. I do get, but that's why I gave Friendly Neighborhood a 7, right? Like I feel like this is leaps and bounds ahead of that. Like I don't know how you compare them. It's really difficult. They're such a different show, and I know they're both
Mhm.
animated superhero shows, which is hilarious to say. Like they're so different, but they really are. Like it's very different.
Yeah. And I like I said, I love Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It is definitely still a 9 for me after this season. I think what hurts Invincible almost a little bit too, like thinking about it, is the standards we hold it to. It is going to be harder for it to get a 10 when we are nitpicking it as much as we are. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man came out of left field, right? We did not expect it to end up being something we really liked. Our first podcast on it where we talked about the first couple episodes, we were hesitant on it. We were like, I don't know if we'll finish it. And by the end of it, we really loved it. So I think that's part of those things that just hurt Invincible a little bit, is the standards.
Yeah, which makes sense. I'm pretty critical of most things, so I don't know. It maybe that's what actually just hurts. Friendly Neighborhood Spider Man for me, but anyway, dude, this has been a blast. I'm glad we hopped on here and got to talk about it and get this out a little bit earlier.
Yeah, for
So
sure. It's been a blast. I love talking about Invincible. It'll be a year from now till we get to talk about it again. But like you said, luckily we have a lot of other stuff to carry the load until that time comes.
yeah, and we'll have Reacher to talk about soon, and we still have that Daredevil stuff coming out. So a lot of stuff on the horizon. We're definitely looking forward to it, guys. If you're not following us, you're not subscribed. Go ahead and click that button. Super easy. You can turn notifications off if you want, but if you don't, you'll know when the new episodes drops. We are being a little bit more sporadic with our dropping schedule here of late, just because we don't want to wait entire weeks but to be behind on things, and it's been a little bit easier for our schedule to kind of fit. So if you do want to turn notifications on for when we drop, you may get to know when that is instead of going and searching like, oh, we dropped a new one. And then we're always available on our social media. So we're available on X and Instagram, and then we're also in our Discord still. If you want to hop into that and join that, the link to that is below. We also have some merch. So shout out again, if you want to get a shirt, you want to get a hat, we do sell those. They are super comfortable, high quality, and they're definitely worth it. So if you enjoy the show and you want to support us and support a local business with Lindsay, that would be incredible. But guys, thanks so much for listening to the review of Invincible Season 3. It's focused on the finale. It's been a blast talking about it, and we'll catch you in the next one.